You get home from a date, you feel frustrated. She was a great woman, someone you were really, really interested in, but she wasn't interested in you. Whereas last week you had a date with a woman you basically couldn't care less about, but she was interested in you. She wanted to get to know you better, and she sent you a message saying, I'd love to see you again. Now, you don't need to tell me how frustrating that is, but there is a question of why does this happen? Why do the women that you're interested in not be interested in you? They don't reciprocate that feeling. Now, there's a lot to this. It's a bit of a deep question, in fact. And often I'll hear the blasé response that if this happens to you, all you have to do is show that you're indifferent, that you don't really care, and then these women, they're going to end up chasing you, from kind of red pill dogmatists. And this is a very surface level understanding of what's really going on. And I want to give you a much better understanding, because if you really want to have a relationship with someone that lasts, someone you want to be with, you need to answer this question. So that's what I'm going to do, so that you can find that woman, so you can get into a relationship with the kind of woman that you want to be with. So let's get into it. Let's really uncover what's happening here. Now, to understand why the women you're interested in aren't interested in you, you have to understand what is happening in a dating scenario. Now, all of dating comes down to communication, right? It's not just the words we speak. It's not just the tonality we use. It's not just our hand gestures, as I'm showing here, our facial expressions. Even things about like our choice of clothing, our posture, the way that we present ourselves in the world, the way we walk, is all communicating something. And all communication is sharing our internal world, what's going on in our head and in our heart, with the external world, i.e. other people, in this case dating, women that you're on a date with. Now, there are things that we consciously do when we're communicating, things like our word choice, things like whether or not we lean in or whether or not we make eye contact. All these things are kind of like conscious things that we are communicating on the surface level of an interaction. But whenever we are spending time with someone, we're also communicating below the surface. We're sub-communicating things. And often these sub-communicated cues are unconscious, right? We're not actually aware of what we are saying in that moment. And when we are pushing away the women we're interested in, it's because of these subconscious cues, the things that you're not aware of. And it's not until you can change what you're saying below the surface that you will begin to start getting the success you want. Now, I do talk about this concept quite a lot in my free guide to connecting with women. It's free if you want to, find out a little bit more. There's a bit of useful information in that. I link it under every video. So check that out if you are interested. But I'm going to go into a bit more detail on this specific case, obviously, in this video. So why is it that you are going to sub-communicate certain things with the women you are interested in? Well, there's two main reasons. Number one, it's internalized low self-worth. The idea that you actually don't believe you deserve to be with a woman this good, the kind of woman you are interested in. And number two, it's seeking women's approval. And I'm going to break down exactly what these two dynamics are now. Now, the first of these, as I mentioned, is internalized low self-worth. And this is a bit of a tricky one. And I always refer back to one of my current clients when I think about this, because he was also someone who really wanted to start connecting with women that he wanted to be with. He kind of saw most of the women he was getting dates with or he was spending time with were not ones he was interested in. And he had this dynamic where when he would be interested in a woman, he couldn't even ask these women out on dates, by the way. There were women in his social circle that he would spend time with and he'd be really interested in. And then he'd get this kind of rushing feeling of kind of being overwhelmed when it would come to like, I want to start communicating with her. I want to start asking her on a date. I want to start flirting with her. And I always, whenever he used to tell me this, I always kind of refer back to or visualize it in my own head, a bit like the scene in The Godfather where Al Pacino is about to kill the police captain and Salazzo, and there's that kind of train noise that comes in. You kind of see him kind of zoning out, and all you can hear is this rushing train. And often I think that is like a good visualization of what guys in this circumstance feel. They feel like so emotionally overwhelmed that it causes them to kind of freeze up. And you can see in that scene in The Godfather, he's not really there, right? Al Pacino's not really there. You can tell from his body language, the way he's looking. And that's exactly what guys who suffer with this will do. They will end up subcommunicating these kind of cues that they're not really invested and involved in the conversation. Because, ironically enough, they don't actually want it to work. What do I mean by like they don't want it to work? Well, it's a very, very curious thing where they're almost so scared of what success will bring. Like they can't even imagine actually being in a relationship with these women. It's like, what would that entail? What does that actually mean for me? How would I have to change? What if I do things wrong in the future? Because again, they don't feel like they actually are worth this quality of woman. And we, in this client's case, had to really kind of work through that. And it was an emotional blockage that he had around that. And we had to really build up his own self-worth. Part of that was by actually just talking to these women and realizing they're not as maybe amazing as he built up in his head. And also learning to connect in a way that kind of took away the guesswork from him. He spent a lot of time before that, you know, in his own head, like, is this the right thing? Like, should I say this? Should I say that? Whereas by just giving him the actual framework that I teach my clients, he was able to just get through it. You know, he was just really easily able to go, okay, this is what I do. And it kind of removed that fear, but it also taught him that he was able to do this. He was building attraction with these kind of women before he ever asked them on a date. And eventually he did end up asking one of these girls on a date. It went really well. They ended up going on 3 or 4 dates together. Then he had to go away for a business trip as it happened for about 2 months. And he's only just returned from that trip, I believe this week or last week. So we'll see how that progresses. They've maintained touch they've stayed in touch during that period. And he is now in a position where whether or not that goes on, he can actually believe in himself that he's capable of being able to connect with the women he wants. He doesn't doubt it anymore. And as a result, his self-worth in relationship to women in particular has improved, because one thing that is often the case is, you know, guys can be really successful and really confident in other areas of their life, but not confident when it comes to women as well. They can have low self-worth in relation to women, which was the case for this particular client. He's pretty successful. So that's one area. The second area is seeking women's approval. And this is also another tricky one that I really want to explain. And I'm going to use another example to illustrate this for you. So when guys seek women's approval, this will stop the women they're interested in being interested in them, because it actually comes down to something that's happened to them, usually in childhood in this case. Now, often the case for guys like this is they came from perhaps kind of like what you could maybe call like an emotionally unreliable mum. Maybe like she was a little bit explosive. They felt like they had to walk on eggshells around their mum. And a lot of our own relationships are modeled on our parental relationships. Again, they're modeled in that way. It's not like, you know, you can cut the ties, you can overcome these problems. But often the deep-rooted issues guys have actually come from childhood. And because their mums were emotionally unreliable, these kind of men often have to be on guard with women. They feel always a little bit uncomfortable and unable to relax around them. And again, you can understand that the women that you're interested in, if you're unable to relax, they're going to feel that you're nervous. They're going to feel that you're tense, and it's going to push them away. Now, I have a really clear example of this, again, from one of my current clients who, his mum was very chaotic, like really, really chaotic. And he found in his life, he was always connecting with chaotic women. And that was a pattern from his childhood. Whereas the women he wanted, healthy women, he would caretake so much. He would be so worried about upsetting them that they'd end up losing attraction. And again, that's because of the way that he viewed his relationships with his mum. You know, he obviously loved his mum, right? We all love our mum, even with their flaws. And this led him to associate how he behaved with her with other women he was attracted to, right? Even though obviously the level of, the kind of love is different, right? A familial love is different from a romantic love, but it's still love. Now, he had applied conventional red pill wisdom in this case, where he would try and act indifferent with these women, but this also didn't work for him. And again, it's because he didn't get to the root of the problem, but also because, again, acting indifferent, acting like you don't care around women only actually attracts like women who saw that in their own dad, right? Again, it's kind of the vice versa situation. Like they would attract kind of like acting that way only really works on kind of anxious type women who are not comfortable and confident in themselves. And when you ignore them or act like you don't care, it kind of forces them to chase you, right? But these were exactly the kind of chaotic women he didn't want to be with. So it was only reinforcing the problems he was facing. This, by the way, is also why a lot of red pill guys get all bitter and myopic around women and seeing women as all terrible, because the strategies they apply to deal with women only work on kind of low quality women, not the kind of women you really want to spend your life with. So it kind of becomes a self-reinforcing kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, as it were. Now, that's what he did previously. I want to actually share with you what we did and give you the actual strategy that we use so that you can hopefully apply this as well if this is something you struggle with. So yeah, let's do that right now. So what we decided to do in this case is we initially made him aware of the way that he was kind of reenacting the situations with his mum in his romantic relationships. And that awareness alone is really, really valuable, really, really powerful, especially when we have the specific examples. We then began to work on those emotional blockages which were causing him to subconsciously communicate in these ways and subconsciously get tense, and all the subcommunication that was coming out through that. And we gave him the skills and the ability to actually overcome that. Now, one thing I will mention is like that I will give basically everything away on my YouTube channel, on my newsletter, on my Twitter that will help you. I will give you these strategies. The one thing I will never share is that particular strategy, and there is a specific reason for that. It's not because I don't want to help guys, obviously I do. It's just because I know my competition basically watches and consumes my content, and this is like the core of what makes my program, the Dynastic Dating program, so powerful. And I do not want, it'd be like basically like the US government giving out kind of the nuclear codes to China. It's like, why would you do that? So I'm just not ever going to share that one specific thing, but everything else you can just consume on my YouTube channel and other things, and you know, it will eventually, you'll get there. It might take you a couple of years longer to piece it all together, and a lot of time watching videos and stuff, and you know, trying to join the dots, but it's all there for free. But yeah, we got him overcoming that particular problem, and also gave him a better communication style, being able to really start connecting with women much better, becoming more relaxed, understanding like what is the actual framework, what is it you're trying to do when you're trying to attract women, which if you're a logical person like he was, is very, very useful. And most importantly, the best way to actually get yourself to relax is to start enjoying dating, right? And we got him to kind of really start enjoying these times instead of getting so stressed and tense about having to get it right, etc. And this actually led him to a situation, and part of us actually getting him to start enjoying dating was we actually got him to a point where he was dating kind of 4 women at once. Now, this is not something I generally recommend. You have to make sure, number one, that you're aware of what's going on. You have to make sure that, they're aware of what's going on. That you're, what do we both want from this dynamic? And none of the women that he was dating at that time were women who wanted a relationship now, and they were clear about that. He was clear about that, to remove that ethical kind of situation there. But also, it was more just a specific strategy to get him to learn to enjoy dating, right? And he did. He began to feel more confident, more comfortable, and it gave him the mindset he needed long-term to succeed, right? This is why you have to have specific goals for specific people. It depends on their ethical situation, depends on what they want from life. And we were very clear, this is going to be a short-term thing that we're going to do before we dial it in to meet the one woman you want to spend your life with, which is what he ultimately wanted. And we're at that point now where we're actually stripping back this and kind of focusing back in, right? It's like we went broad and wide to give him the skills that he needed to have the relationship he wanted, which, is a case-by-case basis. I wouldn't recommend this to most clients, in fact, but it really worked for him. And now he's in a position where he is enjoying dating. He's, with women he likes, he's enjoying that, it's going well. And now it becomes a point where we just have to be patient in applying this process until he meets someone that he does want to spend the rest of his life with, who's also in a position where she wants to meet someone who she wants to spend the rest of her life with, which is one of those that, you can't control women. All you can do, the other people, you can't control your dates, you can't control how they're acting. All you can do is put yourself in the best position to capitalize on those opportunities when they come, which was our goal there. Again, all this kind of stuff you can find on my channel. You can find it on my YouTube channel, you can find it on my newsletter. It might take you, as I say, a bit of time to piece all this together, but if you really apply it, I want you to do this, right? I want you to be in a position where you can get in the kind of relationships you want to be in, Like, this is why I give away all this free content as well as my paid stuff, because ultimately, not everyone will be in position to do that. Not everyone will be in position to, to pay money to really expedite this process and to do it as efficiently and as effectively as possible. And I still want to help you guys out too. But if you do want to get that kind of expedited process, you want to start attracting the women you want to spend your life with, and get all that information curated and then personalized and giving you a personalized blueprint with feedback that's unique to your situation, that means you can overcome your specific problems, then feel free to book in a free path to commitment strategy session. I'm going to leave the link below this video. It's free. It's just a chance for me and you to sit down and chat and figure out whether this is something that will work for you and whether it's worthwhile us exploring that further. Obviously, there's no pressure on that. The link's below. But I also, if you're not in position to do that, I also recommend checking out another of my videos, which specifically helps address this particular topic as well. This video is still this 8-step strategy to rebuild your confidence with women. It will give you kind of the exact step-by-step process I did this, which you can just kind of steal and apply to your own life as well. And that can be really, really valuable for you. So yeah, I hope this kind of really helped you understand a lot of what's actually happening below the surface when you're not able to attract the women you want to attract. It's a big issue and it's a big topic, and it's not as simple as just acting different and you'll get the women you want. I wish it was, but if it was, you'd have all fixed this problem by now, because it would have a very simple solution. The solution is not particularly complex, but it's not as simple as that. But anyway, I'll leave that to it. I've talked enough. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got a lot of value out of it. Please, yeah, if you want to let me know, give me any feedback, comments, etc. I'd really appreciate that too. All right, guys, check out.